It's been great. The last 2+ months have been a whirlwind, a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of hard work by so many. I want to give credit to the staff and the administration, everybody that's put in a lot of man hours to continue to get to this thing to where it is today. A lot more work to be done. The people of Northwest Arkansas have been amazing. The fans throughout the state have been supportive. It's been a lot of fun, but we know every single day there's work to be done. The players have been great. It's been a lot of fun to be able to spend some time with them and continue to work. And excited as we continue to get closer and closer to spring ball to see what kind of football program and team we're building every single day. But it's been exciting, and we know exciting days ahead. So.
Yeah, Coach, good to have you back in here. From the day you were hired to early signing day, hiring a staff, transfer portal, right into the contact period, what was it like when that dead period hit? I mean, where did your focus go to?
Yeah, I mean, there was everybody always says, oh, now there's time off, time to relax. There's no such thing, not in college football, right? Maybe July 1st through the 5th, you may catch your breath, but it's you go into the dead period, it's been go, 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 right? Literally, like you talked about with all the things we went done, and now you're like, okay, wait a second, now we get to be around our current team, our current program, and that's what you love about everything. Listen, I appreciate everything that goes along with what college football is now and what January looks like, especially December, and then coming in new, and then what January looks like. But to be able to say, okay, now it's February. As much as we love recruiting and being off campus and having young men come see our campus and so many things to sell, it's now, okay, we get to be around our current team. We're still recruiting every single day. That's nonstop. But the ability to kind of, okay, start teaching our guys scheme, right? Being around our guys, go watch them lift, start to do some of the morning workouts with them. And I think that's where the true joy comes from. Get a feel for how these guys learn. And so we've been, day and night with that stuff now and kind of just, okay, we're settled back. We got everybody home at home base and kind of get a feel for everything. But that's fun because you get a chance to see the guys' personalities, right? A lot of this recruiting, especially in the transfer portal area, and signing high school kids in 48 hours, you get to know them, but not really. And so now you're getting a feel for them, and whether it's breaking bread with them, watching them lift weights, teaching them, talking to them about academics, life things. But those things have been enjoyable as well.
You've got a quarterback competition coming up. Probably the most difficult position to evaluate because you don't hit them live and all that kind of stuff. How do you see that starting? Obviously it started now, but how do you see that starting and how do you see it finishing? And is there any concern that you don't have like a guy that's like a proven winner on the Power 4 level?
Yeah, it's a great question. Listen, I think it's everybody always wants that proven guy that's played a lot of football. And we've got some guys that have played some football and some guys that have had success, but I think it is a wide open competition, and that started the minute they said that they're Razorbacks, right? From the film study to the work they're doing, right? They do a lot of things on their own, throwing with the wide receivers. Obviously, we can't be a part of that stuff. So that competition is a day in, day out thing, but working together. And ultimately, it's one of those things. I don't sit here and say, hey, by the spring game, we're going to announce a starter. I think truly and wholeheartedly. Now, if someone has separated themselves so much so, maybe that's a different story. But I believe this thing is going to go all the way through August, and that's not a bad thing. I've dealt with that before, at every level, right? Whether in the NFL, college, like, hey, really trying to get a feel for what it looks like. The good news is, even though none of them are overly, like you said, experienced, powerful quarterbacks, we've got great faith in what they're capable of doing. We believe they can all be legit Power 4 starters and the ability to win a lot of SEC football games. And so excited about who they are, what they're about, the way they're learning the scheme, the way they're going about their work. So quite excited about that room.
The players who are retained haven't had big winning success here. And one of the goals you had was to put a winning attitude onto the team. How would you say things have gone in that regard so far?
Yeah, we've talked about it even from the last press conference here, which was just over 2 months ago, about changing the mentality, right, and getting everybody to buy in. And the coaches use the word culture all the time. It's a buzzword that they throw out, but what is it really? And I always told you guys this: like, the culture is the guys in the locker room. Right, and what we're doing every single day, and as coaches presenting and showing. But the players have had this great mindset of, listen, whatever happened in the past, everybody's got a clean slate. Okay, I don't care if you were a starter at another SEC school. I don't care where you coached last year or what it looked like. I don't care if you were a scout team walk-on. Everybody's coming here with a clean slate. And it's time to start over, and now we're going to show you guys this is what it looks like to win. This is what it looks like to compete. This is what it looks like to be all in every single day and what we're all about. And the players, the ones that are returning, have bought into that. Because you talk to them, and again, I will always tell you guys this, like, I've got so much respect for everybody that came before me, whether they won or lost games, whether they coached, whether they played, everybody that was a part of this foundation prior to me getting here. A lot of respect for them. But the reality of it is we didn't win a lot of football games, and there's a reason I'm here. And the guys have bought in, like, this new sense of energy, this new sense of, hey, this culture that we are going to create day in, day out. It's been exciting. And they sit there and say, man, they got a lot of beliefs that we're going to get this thing turned around.
The numbers for Arkansas on the defensive front and secondary maybe were low and maybe not SEC quality. What do you think of the personnel you now have, defensive line, defensive front, and then in the secondary?
Sure. I mean, the majority of the carving out was from the defensive side, right? If you look at especially returning players, we returned one defensive back from Arkansas from last year. And you could say, was that by reason? Was that – listen, I think a lot of it is the one-on-one conversations with the players, right, that we're thinking about returning. Guys that were saying, hey, I may go in the portal. Guys that were not sure if they were looking for greener pastures, more money, better playing time, whatever that may have been. It just naturally didn't work out for them to come back. And so, we returned one guy in the secondary, but I think we've added some really good quality pieces. And you can sit there and say, well, this guy wasn't All-American here. I think we've got quality depth throughout the entire defense. And, we returned a guy like Quincy Rhodes Jr., who announced, right, in the press conference he's coming back, and obviously he's a key piece. But then what do the rest of those pieces look like? And you may say, well, if they're not flashy names, that's okay, right? They're guys that have played some quality football. Guys, we got some young guys that you go back and you have to watch their high school tape and say, okay, hey, this guy – yeah, you're right. He's got some traits that I think can carry over. Maybe he's going to play a little bit more this year if he didn't play in the past. But I think on all three levels of the defense, like you just talked about, a lot of new faces. But we're excited. You get to see them run around right now and work out and how they learn. But what's it really going to look like when the pads come on? I think especially for defense, especially the defensive line, you get to see what we really have.
Coach, you kind of touched on it there, but your defensive tackles are guys that maybe haven't played a whole lot in college, but they're several years in. Kind of what was the strategy behind, targeting? Is that what you wanted to do going into it, or kind of what went into that strategy?
Yeah, I think when the portal opens up, it's cool. Maybe you have your eyes set on a certain number of guys, but I think ultimately find the right fit for us as well. And there's no right answer. You can sit there and say, hey, we want 6'4", 295-pound plus guys that have started 20 games plus in Power 4. Well, good luck. So does everybody else in the country, right? And so there's always competition for those guys that have had that. But I think we got that unique blend. I really did. I think, sometimes people say, well, you bring in a transfer that didn't play as a true freshman because he's a transfer. Does that mean he has to start next year? That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes those transfers are developmental guys as well. But I think we have some guys that can get in the mix. I also believe we have a rotation of guys. What I don't want to do is get into November and say, man, the cupboard's bare. We don't have the depth. And I've been a part of that where you sit there and say, man, we're beat up at the D-line. We have to play this guy because. Well, hopefully we have guys at least we feel like have played enough college football or years of experience in college that you can trust them go in there. You don't want to play a bunch of true freshmen, but if some of those guys are ready, then so be it as well.
And sticking with the defensive line, obviously Coach Hobby left last week. What's the plan? Do you want to find a replacement for him? Could you elevate somebody that's already on staff? Kind of what's the plan there? Yeah,
listen, I wish Coach Hobby the absolute best. But, if you look at the way we designed this thing, and I did this purposely, and someone was mentioned on this, down the road, really we hired 2 offensive line coaches. Right, we hired 2 defensive line coaches. Right, Kenji Cotton's a defensive line coach that I've got great faith in. He's a guy I actually had targeted as soon as I got this job. Right, pulled him from the NFL, a guy with great experience. So, you look at it, we still have a defensive line coach and have great faith in Coach Cotton, what he's able to do, and kind of really now just evaluating what makes the most sense for our program. It's kind of unique. I got a 2-month window into seeing, okay, where are some things that we may need more help, or do we feel really comfortable with that position? Maybe is it the jack position? Is it other areas of need that we may need, or we may say, hey, we're very comfortable with where we're at. For me, I want people that are dying to be here at Arkansas, that love what we're about. They're going to be bought into the way we do things, and if we stay status quo, so be it. I've been pleased with what Coach Cottonsmith will do in that room, and feel very comfortable moving forward, and we'll see what that looks like.
Yeah, whenever you are out of the office, I guess, how have you just been settling into Fayetteville and your new home these past few months?
Yeah, first and foremost, I mentioned this in the press conference. Everybody had told me what a wonderful place this is, until you truly get to experience it, really, I mean, it's phenomenal, right? I love living here. It's beautiful, and it always starts with the people. The people have been great, and I think one of the things I've tried to show is it's important to me to be around and about. There's not a whole lot of free time, right? Like there's not a lot of sleep. Like, I got the young kids at home as well, so I'm not out on the golf courses. I'm not playing around much, but when I do, I want to be out in this great community. And, my wife has already found herself doing community service, right? She's already signed up to do as much as she can to give back to this great city, and she's so excited about that. I've found time to meet with some of these great donors. I try to get to as many basketball games as I can. I've been to a women's basketball game. I'm going to try to get to gymnastics. I'm excited for baseball season. All the great things that are occurring here have been great. But listen, the people of Northwest Arkansas have been phenomenal. I've already put on way too many pounds I want because of the great food here. I think I've tried about every restaurant in town, but it's been great. And again, it goes back to the wonderful people. It truly has.
Given a lot of the player movement, I guess just how closely have you been working with the front office over the last 3 months?
Yeah, we're very fortunate with the administration with what they've been able to do and the front office aspect of that. That was a lot of busy times, especially late December, early January, as we're piecing this thing together. What that looks like. So much of it was just the communication, the day-to-day, the phone calls. Our recruiting department, the guys, Crowley's, Scott Gaspers, those guys were constantly in communication with those things. Now, during the dead period, maybe has kind of slowed down. But I think okay, hey, as we go into later February, March, how do we continue to build that relationship and what that needs to look like moving forward? And how do we continue to make everything better? That's kind of been my challenge for, everybody that has something to do with our football program, whether it's academics, marketing, whatever that may look like, social media, like how do we continue to make this product better? And I think, and always going to start with me as a head coach to make this place so we can have more success on the field.
Obviously, us in here, we haven't seen much of A.J. Hill, so I was wondering maybe A.J. and K.J., could you share how they're similar, how they're different? What are some of the key ways that might determine who is the quarterback one?
Yeah, the AJs and the KJs, they like all the quarterbacks, they love football. And that was one of the things I think at that position, right? Ultimately, we want guys that love football in general. But the quarterback position, they have to be obsessed with it. They have to wake up thinking about being the quarterback of the Arkansas Razorbacks. They have to go to bed thinking about being the quarterback of the Razorbacks. And every decision they make throughout the day, hopefully it's for the betterment of our entire program. And both those young men, especially in all of our Braden Fuller, all of our quarterbacks have that mindset of, okay, how do I make this place better? And what can I do, right? Is it another 2 hours of film study before I go to bed? Is it sending the coaches questions? Hey, on this play call, what are we thinking here? Is it maybe getting with the wide receivers and doing walkthroughs on their own on Saturdays? But they both love ball. They're both adamant about trying to improve themselves, learning, and finding different ways, whether it's with the offensive line coach to discuss protections. And then how are they different? I think we're finding some of the physical skill sets, right? Like we're getting to see him move around a little bit, right? Was able to obviously spend time with AJ last year and watch him in high school, and then KJ watching all his game film and practice film from last year. And now we get to put him in a little bit of physical movement to see how they move, what they may be better at, how they move for different things. So as we implement the offense, if it's one of those two as our quarterbacks, maybe there's different schemes that fit each one, but been quite pleased with the way they've both been working.
You guys brought in a lot of linemen, offensive linemen, to the transfer portal and some returnees. Are there any guys right off the top that you feel like are going to cross-train between guard and tackle, or maybe a lot of guys? I mean, who comes to mind in that situation?
Yeah, right now, just off the top of my head, we're trying. You always want to cross-train as much as you can. But given, really a month of teaching so far, if even that, you got to be careful. It's teaching the guy that's just now learning the offense at tackle, learning it at guard. I think so much of that what's going to end up happening is, okay, they'll get through, let's say, the first 5 installs before we go into spring practice. Then during spring practice, they've heard the first 5 installs now for the second time. And so then you may say, Ryan, what's that going to look like? What does that even mean? So then maybe spring practice 8, we take that tackle and say, hey, let's get some guard work. We take that guard, let's get some center work. We take that guard and maybe get some tackle work. The more those guys can position flexibility, that helps us. But what you don't want to do is cripple them. Hey, I've just learned this position at tackle. Now all of a sudden I got to move inside, and it's a totally different call. It's a totally different scheme. So mentally, we're trying to ease them into it and then see what they're capable of doing as we move forward.
Last one, just your initial thoughts on this new count, like the portal moving, the lack
Well, I'm sure by the end of this press conference, the NCAA will change the rules and we'll have another calendar. I think the portal may actually open up tomorrow or something, so we got to be ready for that. It is unique, right? We had SEC head coaches meetings last week, and the one thing we said is, like, can we just have the back-to-back the same calendars? And people say, well, is that for the better? We don't know. Literally, right, this is going to year, 7 of me being a head coach. We've never had the exact same calendar. And so people say, well, what did you think about? Well, we haven't had a chance to get for 365 days in a row that are the same. So our hope is that maybe it just stays like this, and then we can go back and say, okay, what are the advantages? People forget about, what about the academic calendar? We haven't seen the repercussions of what that looks like, right? What does it look like with spring? We all have all these ideas, right? We could talk for hours upon hours about, hey, how would you change this and how would you change that? But I do think it's nice to kind of, okay, here's our team, right? And as far as we know, right, the additions we're bringing in this summer, and then that's it. So there's not having to worry, right? That when that spring portal window goes, you always worry about who's going to leave, we can maybe just focus on the betterment of our entire program.
Coach, the first day first full day, I guess, you split those 4 kids in Arkansas, and that really kind of got everyone's attention. Can you share what you can about that? I don't know if there's some stuff you don't want to talk about that. But.
No problem. Yeah, I think it's important. Let's talk about just in generalities of Arkansas recruiting. So we signed 19 kids, all right, high school kids. 10 of them are from the state of Arkansas. Let me say that again. 10 of the 19 are from the state of Arkansas. So, like, I think that proves a point that how important this state is to us and what we're trying to get accomplished here. And I spoke at the High School Coach Association, the Arkansas High School Coach Association, a couple weeks ago, and I shared that stat with them, and a lot of them were like, oh, we had no idea. You know, because they all want their kids recruited. They all think, and I said, I don't even know on paper if the recruiting sites would even say there was 10 Division I kids in the state. But that's how important it is to us. We even tried to get some kids, you know, in the portal that are from here, and they never even made the visit here. So I encouraged them. I said, let's keep the kids in state here. If they're thinking about transferring, let's bring them back home if it makes sense for both parties, if it's ultimately the right fit. But those kids that had flipped and decided to stay here and be Razorbacks and play for the in-state team, a lot of those were previous relationships. Some of these kids, you know, I know Quincy Rhodes, that the school put out a thing about our relationship, and it showed a picture of us from, 6 years ago. I had no facial hair, and Quincy weighed about 200 pounds. But those relationships, right, sometimes those are important because those are kids that you believe in, they know you, and they say, man, you haven't changed. You're still that same dude that preaches the same thing, that teaches the kids and tries to play winning football. And the TJ Hodges of I remember going to see him at school, and he wasn't even there. And then I end up running into him at another camp and just saying, hey, don't ever forget about me, and some of these other kids. So I think those relationships, the Danny Beals, right, Kennedy, who was on our campus and said, Coach, I'm really not interested in playing for you at my previous spot. And just keeping those relationships alive, because you never know. Because back then, maybe they would transfer back to Memphis. But I think just being transparent with these kids and showing them what we're all about and kind of building those relationships has allowed us, and that hopefully that will continue to allow us to keep some of these great kids in state.
Another kid from Arkansas, kind of different direction, but Terrence Roberson came from OPU, from Warren. Everybody thinks of wide receivers down at Warren, but Terrence is a big offensive lineman. I know you haven't practiced, but what have you seen from him, and what's your expectations kind of for him?
First off, Warren has been a great pipeline. We're going to continue to bring those guys. In fact, I got to run into old Jarius Wright. People forget I was with him with the Vikings, so it's kind of cool to run into him. He's gotten into the coaching profession. I'm trying to tell him not to get too far down that rabbit hole of coaching, but what it can lead to. But speaking of that, Terrence has been great. I think he's a guy that came in and came from a program that had some success, but just teaching him, hey, this is what it looks like to work at a Division I level. This is what it looks like to work at the SEC level, and we're going to work even harder here at Arkansas. And so Terrence has been great. He's took the bull by the horns and has had a great approach to it. We know how athletic he is. We know he's very raw on some things. And listen, the previous stop did a great job with him, but it's our job to refine some of that stuff, to get his body right in the weight room, to understand what it's going to look like to work the way we work. But he's been great. He's had the right attitude, and we're excited he's here.
Sorry, I got one last question. Just real quick. Do you foresee signing anyone else in the 26th class for high school?
Yeah, I think as far as that goes, you can never say never. I believe we're probably done there. We may add some walk-ons, I think, the NCAA still has the rules of, the 105, and then what do DSAs look like, and we got to continue to look at the number, what that looks like as we massage the roster. But I don't foresee any other signings at this point right now, but obviously things can change.
Ryan, there's some social media, the team aspect here of off-season workouts. What's the thought behind that, or the captains, and how it's all divvied up, what you're looking for there?
Yeah, it's something we kind of bought with us that I implemented a couple years ago, and it was really once the transfer portal came out, and we've kind of deemed it our own thing here. We call it War on the Hill, and it's kind of what we did, and it's got different aspects of it. But the morning workout session that you guys are seeing all the social media blurb on it, we call it Tour of Duty, okay? And what we did is we took really 8 players. I kind of just chose 8 guys that have shown some leadership, guys that maybe mostly guys that were returning, guys that we thought had some leadership qualities, and we chose them. I put 2 per team, okay? And we call them captains of the team. And I said, all right, choose your names. So like one team came up with the Hog Warriors. Cool, that's your name. So we came up with a cool logo for them, and they got their own. They think it's the neatest thing in the world, right? Another one's the Hog Team 6. Another's whatever. They all got their own unique names, right? Watch Greatness is another team name. And so the captains came up with their name. Then what I did was I separated our coaching staff. So I took a offensive line coach and a defensive back coach. I said, you guys have Hog Team 6. I got a running back coach and a linebacker coach. I said, you guys got Watch Greatness as your team. So I mixed the coaches up. Okay, so then what we did is then we had a draft, true NFL draft, old school snake draft where, team 1 picks, all right, and the 6 team picks, and that 6th team that picks then picks the 7th, and they got to draft their own players. We had it where the players were in the lounge. We did the team room. It was a great event. And it told me one thing. You also got to see what the players thought of each other, right? Just in the short time of workouts, leadership, all those things. So then they all drafted their teams, and each team says roughly 16 players, right? Some coaches here or there. So now they got their team. Well, Ryan, what the hell does that mean? So then in these morning workouts, okay, we had one this morning, they compete versus each other. And so now they're doing these morning conditioning drills, but everything is a competition. It's me versus that guy on the other team. And we're constantly doing things, whether we're flipping tires, racing through cones, doing all those different things. Everything is graded and rewarded. So the guys are working their tails off, but they're competing, having fun with it. So it's different than the old school, hey, let's just get on the line and run gassers. There's some similar thought to that, but now everything's a competition. And they get rewarded for points with that. And then you say, okay, well, that's cool, but what else do you do? So like today, we had a tug of war at the end of the day. Let those guys pull the rope, compete that way. We also implement different things. If they do community service, they get more points. I'm pretty proud to announce that last week, right, for the VA hospital, we delivered more cans than they've ever had delivered in a single day, over 1,200 cans delivered by the football program. Like, man, I'm proud of that. But guess what? The guys are also like, we got points for our team. So it's a win-win for everybody. No different. If a kid is late for study hall, that team gets docked points. A kid misses class, they get docked even more points. We found a kid that parked in the wrong parking spot. I showed it to the whole team. I said, this team's going to lose 15 points. So we're not putting up with that stuff. A guy misses a meal. Right? So now all of a sudden you've created this camaraderie for the freshman defensive back now is hanging out with the senior offensive lineman that's from Little Rock, and they're spending all this time together. And, hey, make sure you're going to class. Yeah, hey, let's go to this community service. Hey, let's go have lunch together. Now you're building that bond because we have so many new faces. You got coaches learning each other. Oh, and by the way, they're working their tails off for the betterment of our program. It's been so much fun because we're going to continue to do this thing throughout spring, and we tie it in with other drills. And everybody says, cool, what's the reward? Man, they just love to compete. And so that's what's so enjoyable is kind of watching that as we work. So that's kind of what you guys are seeing on social media, this War on the Hill time with what we're calling this current part of tour duty.
Anything or anyone that stands out?
Man, it's amazing how much like the racing through the drills is how competitive. And when I say in general, like how much they want to win and how much they want to have success. And you get to see the different movement things, and you get to see the guys get on each other about body language. Hey, man, get your hands off your hips. We don't want to get docked. So that's the whole thing. I don't say one individual is sticking out, but what you did get to see is, day one, there's some disciplined guys, right? Guys that weren't seeing the key of the ball to get off and were jumping off sides. You were seeing guys not learning how to finish. Like, oh, there's the line. I got to finish. They were finishing at the line instead of through it. And then every single time we get to implement it, if the line's there for them to finish, now they're almost hitting the back wall of the indoor, Or if a guy starts to pretend like he's stretching, a guy goes, nah, stop that BS. Let's have better body language. So that's what's been so great to me is that's when people talk about culture, like the guys are starting to hold each other accountable, and that's been fun.
Coach Signetti, Indiana, just won a national championship, a program not so dissimilar from this program. as a coach at this program, do you look at it? Is there things that you can look at Indiana and say, man, we could do that. We're not doing that. Maybe we should do that.
Yeah, listen, credit to obviously Coach Signetti and obviously Indiana and what he did. It's remarkable. Let's call it what it is. I will say this because everybody has asked me that. 135 other coaches are trying to do exactly what they're doing. I don't care if you say, well, they were similar to what we are. Notre Dame's trying to do exactly what Indiana did. Oregon, all the resources, right? Everybody's trying to do exactly what Indiana did. We all are. Hawaii, and so, but you learn from it, right? Like obviously they had some experience. He's a fantastic coach, and they hit on the right guys. He did a phenomenal job of earmarking the right guys. So I give them all the credit. We all, yes, right? Like we hope that on all these high school kids, we batted 1,000. We hope on all these transfers, we really hit. We hope in this quarterback competition that we got a dude. And so there's things you model, you look at, you try to learn from every program. I mean, right? Maybe it's stealing a play from them, right? Maybe it's looking at something they've done in the off season. And I'd say this, every college program's constantly doing the same. Like, hey, is there something we can learn from what Wyoming was doing? And so that's part of it. But, yeah, we're going to constantly try to elevate ourselves. But someone said, hey, does that put more pressure on you? Nah, that's just the nature of it. I'm glad to see that it shows that everybody's capable of going out there and competing at the highest level.
Great, Daniel. Hey, Coach, you brought in a lot of guys from your previous program, Memphis. I'm just curious how they're settling in. I know you talked about AJ Hill already, but kind of Sutton, Matt Adcock, the other guys.
Yeah, listen, it was funny because you look at some of these other coaches I know, like from the coaches from our conference, right? I guess, Morris brought in significantly more than we did, to Oklahoma State. Golish at Auburn brought in significantly more than we did. And so some people say, well, do you wish you brought in more? Listen, so many great players that came from Memphis and pleased with those guys that are here with us now. They're working well. One of the things I found is how well they're getting along with these other teammates, right? Like I'm glad they still hang out with each other some, but they've just really have been invested not only in this community but their teammates as well, and they've done a great job. I'll say this: like Sutton Smith was the first. One of the teams drafted Sutton first in the deal, and they said, well, he's going to know the drills, right? He's going to understand what the accountability piece looks like and all that stuff. Jamari Hawkins, a lot of these guys. But it's been fun with some of those guys. You mentioned Matt Adcock. They've also bought into the special teams aspect of what we're trying to get done here. I know you guys will meet with Chad Lunsford later. Like they've been so excited to, okay, what can we learn on a special teams aspect? We can't forget that. And so it's been great watching those guys. They're hungry. They know they're not promised anything and the opportunity to come and compete and work their tails off. But they absolutely love living here. They love being a part of this culture, this community. And again, that's credit to you guys. That's credit to the fans. They've been so appreciative.
You guys brought Tim Cramsey with you back over from Memphis. Does that maybe help with the install, just having those guys who are familiar with the system?
To an extent, for sure. I think there's, if I'm one of those young men, right, I'm 22 years old and I'm going maybe into my last year of college football. Who knows what the last year of college football looks like anymore, right? But presumably the last year of college football for these guys, there's comfort in knowing, hey, I understand this offensive scheme. I understand the way that Coach Silverfield's going to work. I understand the way Cramsey's going to run meetings and practice at a certain aspect. So the familiarity with that is not just in the playbook itself and the X's and O's, but also the day-to-day, what that looks like. And hopefully that means they appreciate the way we did things and they're excited to be a part of it moving forward. But certainly, they feel comfortable with it. It allows them, AJ has been talking to KJ about some different reads and going through those things, right? Jamari Hawkins has taken some of those receivers, not just the freshmen, but some of those other guys that may be saying and taking, CJ Brown saying, hey, on this route, we want to get one more step here because of this, and this is why. And so that's been fun to see.
Last one, Armando.
Hey, Coach. Matt here. Speaking of the offseason, there's been a handful of programs across the country that kind of went away from the spring game format. Just what went into your thought process of having that spring game this offseason?
First and foremost, it's another opportunity for us to go out. We're going to do a scrimmage anyways, so let's do it and put together in a good format. And secondly, I think we owe it to the fans. I think it's a great opportunity to showcase our fans what we have, what we're all about, to open it up to the public so they get a feel for it. Is it going to be a 4-hour true game? No, but we are going to have a game format. We are going to go do a true scrimmage. And maybe we have teams on there and you get to see guys on different deals and competing. But I think more than anything, when I first thought about it, it's another opportunity for us to compete against each other, to see what we have. It's another great opportunity, great way to teach in a different atmosphere, go into our stadium, and then I think we owe it to our fans. I think our fans deserve to see what we've been working on, kind of get to know some of these new names, these new faces, as they're scrambling through the program, looking at jersey numbers and putting faces with these names. But I think it's a great opportunity, and unless the rules change in the foreseeable future, I think it makes a lot of sense to do it.